Welcome to the campus of Benedictine College for another episode of Greatness Unleashed. No Josh Pound for the opening segment. It's a little bit different. Collin hosting for this opening piece. Josh will join us in a little bit. I am joined by Dakota Smith, who has had a little bit of a hiatus from being on camera from our podcast episodes. It's been, a couple months?
I was thinking about it as I was walking in this morning. It was the episode before the first playoff football game since I've been on here. So it's been 3 months and change since my face has made an appearance.
It's been a hot minute for Dakota. That's what we've drawn this down to. But since Dakota and I, at least now at this point in the year, are kind of the two main voices of Raven athletics, we figure what better way to kind of dissect what's happened in the landscape of athletics over the last couple of weeks than with two guys who get to be on the call for it. So we will start on the hardwood. Men's basketball, their season unfortunately coming to an end in the first round of the Hart Championship Tournament Series. In the quarterfinals, a loss to William Penn, who they beat earlier in the year. Final score of that one, 88-73. The Ravens are going to finish the season over 500, 15-14. Just what are your kind of overall thoughts on the season? It was my first year getting to see the team in action. Obviously, you've been around the block for a few seasons, but what were just kind of your overall takeaways?
I thought there were times where they looked really, really good. But then when shots don't fall, then you lean on your defense, but you can only lean on your defense so much. You have to be able to put the ball in the basket, and that struggled a little bit with that at some points during the year. And you run into a William Penn team who is playing as good as anybody right now. I mean, and they went on and then steamrolled the 3-seed Grandview to play in the championship game, which as of recording will be tonight against Graceland, who they've beaten twice. So that'll be, Graceland will want their revenge, but William Penn is playing as good as anybody in the Hart right now, and they're just a super talented team. Benedictine, we got them at a really good time to start the conference season because they hadn't quite figured out William Penn hadn't quite figured out who they were yet. But then you could see as the season went on, as the conference standings finally started to shake themselves out, that they were going to be one of the top two teams.
And they showed it, like you said, they beat Graceland twice already this year. Hard to beat a team 3 times, especially one that is of the caliber of Graceland. So that will be a pretty exciting matchup to watch this Monday evening. Tuesday, so will be the day that this episode airs, is the Heart of America Conference Tournament Championship game between the Lady Ravens and 10th-ranked MNU. It'll be the second time in just a couple of weeks that these two squads will face off. The MNU ended the 13-game roll for the Ravens just a couple of weeks ago at the end of the regular season. 2 big wins for the Ravens at home. First in the quarterfinals against Mobap, 83-60. And then how about, I think what we all thought was going to be a good win, but maybe not one of this caliber, a 70-46 steamroll of Grandview in the semifinal game.
Yeah, that game kind of caught me off guard. While I was calling it even, it was a 3-point game at the end of the first quarter, and then the doors just got opened up, and Benedictine outscored Grandview 27-6 in the second quarter. It was a 20-2 run to close the half, and it just kind of blew the game wide open, and Grandview was never able to recover from that point. They held Grandview to a season-low 46 points. They held Grandview's leading scorer to 5. And nobody on Grandview individually had more than 10. Defensively, it was probably the best defensive game that Benedictine's had all year.
No, I mean, they did a phenomenal
job.
12 turnovers allowed by the Ravens. They forced 16 against Grandview. Doesn't get a whole lot better than that. Like you said, a 20-2 run to close a half. Hard to bounce back from. And I was over at baseball in the middle of this, so you were just kind of talking about it. It seemed like Grandview kind of checked out in the second quarter. There was just so much momentum on the side of the floor for the Ravens. The dominance just kind of a little too overbearing.
Yeah, Benedictine was just playing great defense, and then the offense was just clicking too. When you have 26 assists on 28 made field goals, you are doing something very, very right on the offensive end. On the offensive end of the floor, that is, you just don't see numbers like that. 2 unassisted baskets the entire game. That's almost unheard of at any level, really. 26 assists is a big number. 9 of those came from Owen Dieters, but just a great all-around team win again for Benedictine. And we'd be doing a disservice if we didn't talk about Michaela Bauman's back-to-back career highs. She had 14 in back-to-back games, made 4 threes in each game, just shooting it lights out right now for the Ravens, and they're going to need it against MNU. The first game was much closer than the second. That first game went to overtime, and MNU came out with a 3-point win, but then MNU really controlled that game at their place to close the season.
Yeah, should be a good matchup from Olathe. We'll go out to the baseball diamond real quick. Baseball off to a 7-5 start this year. Split the series against Waldorf to open, and then a 4-game sweep over Calvary at the beginning part of last week in the prior weekend. That first game, a 3-0 win for the Ravens. Parrish Beagle came out a complete 7 innings, 13 strikeouts, just a monstrous performance from him on the bump. And then we go to the offensive side of things, and there has been a guy by the name of Bryce Martin who has been on fire to start the year. Ravens did drop their most recent series, by the way, 3-1 to Briarcliff.
Yeah, Bryce Martin hitting .463 on the year, kind of where he left off last year. He had a great season last year, and he's just kept it rolling. He's 7 games with an RBI in a row, and he's got 15 on the year to lead the team, having a great start to his senior season. He's also a fantastic right fielder too. He's got a great arm. And the little bit I was up at baseball this weekend, he threw somebody out from right field to third for a double play to end an inning. So really a guy that contributes in all facets of the game. He leads the team with 11 stolen bases too. So just great person as well. I got to have him in class last semester, and it was great to have him in class, and it's great to see him off to a great start.
Go over to softball, so we'll stay kind of in the diamond realm of things. They are finally kind of getting their feet underneath them on a 5-game roll. Win against Ottawa 5-2, win against York 12-4 in just 6 innings. Beat Waldorf 12-1, 8-3 over Doane, 2-0 over Columbia College out of Missouri. They had a kind of gauntlet of a preseason or pre-conference schedule, you could say, and they have finally kind of turned things up. A big win over Oklahoma City University as well, 1-0. Everything is starting to kind of fall into place for softball.
Yeah, that Oklahoma City win, that's a huge, I can't put that into words how big of a win that is with the history that is involved in Oklahoma City's program, and they were the national runner-up last year. Bailey Selvage threw a gem in that game, went complete game, and had 10 strikeouts against one of the best offenses, if not the best offense in the entire country. And that was before that you had to play the number 1 team in the country in Southern Oregon, and then another ranked team in Hope International too. But this last weekend, Rhiannon Martin had maybe the best week of her entire Benedictine career. 4 home runs, 14 RBIs on the week, had 2 4-hit games for the Ravens this week. And the junior is really having a great start to her junior year. And the pitching has been as good as advertised again. That's where, if you talk to Coach Hunt, that's the strength of their team. They are a fantastic pitching staff. Lacey Foster's been great in relief this year. Her ERA is still under 1. And then Bailey Selvage, against even the gauntlet that she has faced, still a 1.17 ERA in 47 2/3 this year. She's got the 52 strikeouts, and that's a number that people need to keep an eye on because that career record could fall at some point later in the year.
I would say those are some numbers you could live with if you are the Ravens coaching staff. We'll go over to Legacy Field now, women's lacrosse. 3-0 start to the year, picking up right where they left off at the end of last season. They beat Quincy 16-15, Ottawa 25-1, and then this past Saturday, the home opener against William Jewell 22-14. You were on the call for that William Jewell win, and it has been another electrifying start to a season for women's lacrosse.
Yeah, and it's a lot of what we expected, and they came out of the gate, played phenomenal. William Jewell really evened it up there in the second quarter, and within the third quarter, Benedictine again gets off to a great start to start a half. The clock ran for just a little bit over half of the third quarter before William Jewell had a really good start to the fourth that got rid of the running clock. But Kaylin Moore was Kaylin Moore. We all know that. She's the reigning National Player of the Year. She had 2 goals, 4 assists, 15 draw controls. That's just what she does. And that's what you expect out of her. McKenna Hill with 5 goals. Lorelei Siegel, 4 goals, 3 assists. Alexa Hildenbrand, 3 goals, 3 assists. A lot of the same names that you saw last year are going to be big key parts again this year for the women's lacrosse team, and will be the word I'm looking for here, but a big part of making sure that they can get back and try to defend that national championship.
And we'll just touch on it real quick. Men's lacrosse, they haven't had their home opener officially on their schedule. They did play the University of Kansas in an exhibition. Their one official win, though, against Ottawa, dominant fashion, 31-0. No numbers to balk at there. And I think the box score kind of speaks for itself. But it's been a busy transition as we start to move outside for spring sports. Dakota, great to have you back on the show for the first time in a while. Hopefully we can do this again and talk about some more spring sports as they continue to get even busier. Maybe talk about a women's basketball conference tournament championship win. That'd be pretty cool as well. But that's going to do it for our opening segment. When we come back, Josh Pound will join us with Coach Connealy to talk some track and field. That's what's coming up next on Greatness Unleashed from the campus of Benedictine College.
Welcome to the Heart of America Athletic Conference, where innovation meets tradition. Here, growth is not just measured in victories, but in the development of character and sportsmanship. Our student athletes compete at a championship level, pushing their limits every day. The Heart is committed to an uncommon student athlete experience that features some of the premier athletic programs in the NAIA. Our commitment to excellence goes beyond athletics, establishing a community of support and mentorship. But what truly sets us apart is the heart with which we play. Join us and experience the passion, the drive, and the spirit of champions. That passion and commitment extends off the playing field and into graduation. The Heart of America Athletic Conference, champions in competition, leaders in life.
Welcome back to this latest edition of Greatness Unleashed. Josh Pound, now joined by track and field cross country head coach Jacob Connealy. And coach, indoor season has not come to a conclusion, but for a lot of the team, that their focus is now turned to the outdoor season. But you got a handful of kids that are going to go off this week and represent Benedictine at Nationals. Just kind of take us back through the conference meet, how you thought that went. In first place on the women's side going into day two, and then still stayed competitive, kind of dropped out, but then got back into it there later in the day. It seemed like it was kind of an up and down day where there was a lot of back and forth for both teams.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, going into it, we knew that on the women's side that CMU was they were the team that was going to win. Most likely, like they had the most points possible with the athletes they had on there, especially in the sprints, which we can't really do much about that because we don't have a lot of sprinters. We're heavy distance, and then we have other areas that we score a few points, but it's hard for us to break that up when we don't have people in those races. Really, we just had Brenna. She was the only one. But I mean, I think I'm very happy with how the women's team competed. I think there were a few more points we probably could have scored, but like not that many more. Right. Everything went our way in a lot of ways. And I was very happy with how they competed. I mean, when you looked at like the projections, like CMU could have won by, almost 100 points, like depending on how things stacked up. So, I mean, the fact that we were, made it close until the very end was encouraging.
Well, you had a couple of young ladies that were top point scorers for you as well, so that has to make you feel pretty good about not just the overall success of the team, but you had a couple of athletes that were able to really step up their game and mm-hmm. give you some points in a variety of events on the second day of that meet.
Yeah, and we had Ceci was I think the high point scorer, and then Betsy, a freshman, got freshman of the year, and they both did really well in their events. I think Ceci got first in all of hers except there was one relay that was the second place. It was the 4x4, which she's not even a sprinter, so very impressive.
So, indoors a unique situation. When track in general is just unique because it's an individual team sport, and that you don't compete as a team until you get to that conference time. There are, I guess, a handful of regular season events sometimes where they'll keep point totals and things like that for you. But how do you balance making sure everybody gets repetitions and gets enough where you feel confident going into a team situation where all of the parts of the team are going to come together at the right time?
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of pieces to the puzzle, and I think really my focus is, I did look at the numbers of what it would take to win, but my focus isn't on that. My focus is on, okay, each person just needs to do the best they can in their specific events. You know, there is a little bit of shuffling around of like, okay, who's going to do which events. On the distance side, you know, with the 600 and the 800, the 1,000, like there's some options. And then like, you know, are we going to have our distance runners run the mile or the 5K or the 3K? And I mean, when it comes to distance events, I let Coach Kofer really, like, hey, I think this athlete's going to handle it. They can do all 3 events, whereas I think this athlete should do 2. They can be kind of our main, you know, kind of by the time you get to the last race of the meet, you know, like everybody's run 2 or 3 races.
Right.
And so like if you have one person you could put in fresh, then they might be the point scorer in that event. So there's lots of things to think of like that. But I think overall it's just day in and day out, like, okay, what does this individual athlete need? Yeah, there's a lot of like we have to do like this as a whole team, but there's also, okay, so like on the distance side, it's like this person's going to do an extra rep or 2 extra reps, whereas this other person's not there yet. And so it's kind of, you know, the workout is the same across the board, but It's tailored slightly to that person. On the throws side, you know, I might have an athlete throwing heavier implements one day, but they're doing the same number of throws, or so we can kind of tailor what each individual needs at that time to be their best. But I really think that, I mean, the focus is making sure that each individual can compete at their best, and that's how you put it together. And then, like, when you go to the meet, I tell the kids, you know, you're doing this not just for yourself, but like for your team. Because if you move up a couple places, you know, that could move us up a place as a team, you know. And so they run for each other, not just for themselves when it comes to that meet.
Well, and again, track and field, one of those things where, you know, it's not like some sports where you got to win your conference tournament championship to continue to move on in your season. Conference is just the last opportunity to showcase who you are, to maybe hit that A or B standard. When you look back and you know, if you have an athlete that gets to the A standard earlier in the year, how does that change the rest of their season? Or if it's somebody who's hit the B and you know they've got the A in them, like how do you balance that?
Well, I think for a lot of them, it's like kind of a relief. It's like, oh, I've been wanting this, and then when they hit it, I mean, a B standard is kind of, it can be nerve-wracking, but this year it worked. I mean, we only had 1 A standard actually, and we had 5 or 6 Bs, but we ended up being able to take all the ones we wanted because those girls that were in B standard were still top 20.
Right.
So seeing, you know, I'll talk like Maddie and Maria, like in the triple jump, one of them's 10th, one of them's 12th. They were able to look at that and say, well, I'm 10th or 12th in the country right now. You know, I know top 20 go. So it kind of takes that pressure off of like, okay, I've jumped well, like I can just let it go, and I don't have to have that pressure every time I jump. It's like, is this going to be the jump that's going to make me qualify? Is this going to be the, you know, it's like just relax and compete. And I think that was good. You know, Maddie was able to take first in the triple jump, which was really, really good for her. I don't think she's been a conference champion yet, so that was a first for her. But I think the fact that she'd already qualified for nationals made it like, okay, I can just focus on the win. I don't need to, you know, like focus on, if I don't hit this jump, I'm not going to go, like my season will be done, you know, all that kind of stuff.
Well, so now the tension returns. You guys are headed down to Florida this week to compete at nationals. A number of athletes back at their second straight appearance, but some newcomers on there. Just take us through like what your expectations are going into this week down in Florida.
The hope is, I mean, I'm hoping we have on the women's side, we have our best showing. I'll start with the men's side because it's easier. We just have 4 race walkers going. Owen, he's hoping to, you know, get the win. You know, he did it last year, so we'll see. It's going to be tight. I think he has definitely the potential to be, you know, top 8, but he could be a national champion again. We'll see. I mean, it's there, and we'll see if he can make it happen. The other guys race walking, like maybe CrossFit could slip into top 8, but he'll have to have a huge PR. So yeah, and then the other guys, they're just getting experience being there. Micah, he's a senior, so it's kind of nice for him to, you know, to just
right.
be at nationals his senior year, but he's not really in scoring position yet. I mean, who knows? You know, sometimes you have a big PR and you can move up a lot. But on the women's side, we're pretty excited. Ceci's sitting in a really good position in the 800. The DMR, the distance medley relay, is in a really good position. I can't remember, like things have shifted. I think they're around 10th. But Ceci's definitely in the top 8 right now in the 800. And then Maddie and Maria, you know, they're sitting, like I said, 10th and 11th. So, I mean, top 8 is scoring, so they're right there. It's not that far off. The crazy thing about the triple jump, though, is they're at the national level. They go about from a 36-foot board, and so a lot of girls they're jumping 37, 38 feet. So it makes them nervous, and sometimes girls just they put their feet down, they don't finish the jump because it's just further because they're jumping from a 30-foot, 28-foot board or something like that. So I mean, but there are girls that are jumping 40 feet. And it's like, do they really, so they have that standard of okay, you're jumping over 36 feet. Let's go from a 36-foot board. So, I mean, yeah, anything could kind of happen. We're hoping to have our best showing, score more points than we have in the past. Leah could be top 3 in the race walk. Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of points that could be scored.
Well, and relays, I mean, it's kind of a luck of the draw, isn't it? I mean, your seeding and your pairings and your prelims, if you get in a slow heat, then because you're really kind of racing both time and your opponent when it gets into those relays.
Yeah. So in the relays, top, it's different per race. Some races it's top 3 and then next 4 fastest or something make it to finals. And so you just have to know those rules going into it. And is this a race that we need to? And the DMR is really interesting because, I mean, obviously, the 400 leg is not the you're not going to cover make up ground, but you run a mile. Betsy's going to run a mile, so it's she's going to know okay, I need to be sitting in this place. So do I need to put down my best mile of my life, or do I just need to finish this in 3rd place and just move on to finals? So you got to play it strategically so you're not burning yourself, and then you can run another
and that relay
race 2 days from then.
That relay especially is almost controlled chaos, right? I mean, you've got multiple exchange zones because of the distance they're running. I mean, I'm sure by this, by the time you get to nationals, everybody's kind of used to it. But as somebody who might look at the race for the first time, it is pretty nuts that one person will exchange it over here, but as a coach, do you just have to find different spots of the track to be at, or where are you trying to be?
Yeah.
During the course of that race?
I mean, Coach Kofer and I will split up. He'll probably be at the the start line, and he'll just keep getting splits where he can. And it might, if it's the handoffs at a different point, he'll start the clock when they pass that, and then they'll know okay, that's what their 200 split was, and are we on pace? But at the end of the day, at nationals, the splits they're important for the mile and the 12, but at the end of the day, it's are we in the race, And so it's more about okay, the first leg is Ceci putting us in position, from the get-go, and then is Brenna going to hold it in the 4, not lose anything, and then. Yeah, I mean, it's all about placement. It's not necessarily about time or pace. Obviously, if it's good to have it initially, because if you're going out 10 seconds too fast in a lap, then it's okay. I need to back off because I'm going to die.
Right.
But at the end of the day, if you're that far off already if you're that out of it already, it doesn't really matter.
Right.
It's time to just go for it.
Well, thanks for taking the time, and busy time of year as you're starting. Some of the team is already shifted to outdoor practices. You still focused on an indoor, obviously, getting these kids down to nationals. Good luck, safe travels. I'm sure we'll have you back out throughout the spring to talk about how the spring season's going. So thanks, Jacob, for taking the time. Coming up after the break, we'll sit down with cheer head coach Gabby Keating. You're watching the latest edition of Greatness Unleashed from the campus of Benedictine College.
Benedictine College in Atchison, Kansas is a Newman Guide school with top 10 rankings in U.S. News and the Wall Street Journal. Choose strong Catholic identity and strong academics, including pre-med, nursing, engineering, and classical architecture. Benedictine granted more scholarships this year than ever before. Choose dominant Raven athletics with nearly 20 conference and national championships in the last 5 years. Choose a college consecrated to the Blessed Mother. Engage with a community of faith and scholarship. Join our mission to transform culture in America. It starts with you.
Welcome back to this latest edition of Greatness Unleashed. Josh Pound, and now happy to be joined by competitive cheer head coach Gabby Keating. And Gabby, you guys are coming off one of the most successful events of the season for you guys over at Columbia, a week ago?
Yep.
Just, I guess, take us through the anatomy of competitive cheer. What does getting your best score mean for the average fan?
Yeah, so with cheerleading, people normally think of the game day aspect of it, cheering on the sideline, which that's definitely part of it. But when it comes to doing the competition routine, it's combining the highest level skills you can do in 2 minutes and 30 seconds. So if you think running a mile is kind of crazy, think about doing all of that in 2 minutes. So it's tumbling, it's jumping, it's stunting, whether that be individuals in your pyramids, so coming together, going 2.5 high, which is also insane. But it's definitely pulling everything that you can together into one routine, and to get the highest score, it comes down to execution, and it also comes down to difficulty. So if you're doing simpler skills, you're trying to shoot for higher execution, but you're also trying to do some of the more difficult skills, but you also want to have execution in the back of your mind as well.
And all of that's pre-established going in, correct? Like you have to like let the judges know like this is the skill level that we're like this, at least how I'm deciphering the score sheets that we get. Like you're graded on a scale, and if you do really well, then you get a higher score in that scale. But if you are average, it's like, so how do you determine like what you're going to shoot for every time you go out and compete?
Yeah, so we have a rubric that's given to us, and in that rubric, it's your intermediate skills, your advanced skills, and your elite skills. And so you want to shoot right now in the NAI, you're wanting to shoot for the advanced level skills, and then you eventually want to work your way up to those elite skills. But we're on a range of a 1.0 to about a 7.5. And so right now we're sitting in that 3.0 range, and for this next competition for conference, we're shooting for that 6.0 range for difficulty. So
you mentioned it. Everybody sees you guys on the sideline, at football games, at basketball games, but that's just a small part of like what it looks like to be, a cheerleader here on campus. You guys are practices early in the morning or late at night because you got to try to get everybody together around class and then still go like be the supporters for all the different programs. Just take us through like what is your average day look like as far as practice and then like meeting with the team and things like that.
Yeah.
Before and after, you oh, by the way, we got a game we got to go do tonight too.
Yeah, so during the week, we practice 3 times a week from 5:30 to 7:45 in the morning. It works with my schedule, it works with everybody else's schedule. But we start off bright and early morning practice, and then everybody goes to class, including myself. I am a grad student, so I'm still finishing that up. And then they also have lift twice a week, so they're lifting in the afternoons, and then after that, they're at their basketball games or we're at football games on the weekends. So we keep them pretty packed all week long.
And so it's a buildup. Obviously, the competitive season itself is contained within maybe a month of the full of the year. But like you guys are together from August until the end of nationals. If you're lucky enough to go. So what is like, you're building up to be the best you can be at conference, but at the end of the day, it's your average score throughout that competitive window that allows you to be able to move on then, correct?
Correct. And we go from August all the way through April. I tell people, recruits all the time, it's a full year commitment. It's not just football. It's not just basketball. We go all year long, and we start our competition process as early as October. And we kind of get kind of a base outline, and then I have a choreographer come in, and she works with us and creates our routine. And then we kind of hit the ground running. Once we get that outline, then we start building up from there.
How much changes through the course of that process, or is the routine that you're going to have at conference, was it still kind of based off of what you guys started with, or will it evolve as you move through the season?
It's going to evolve. It's not going to be the exact same routine that we started off with in October. That was a very simplified version, and now we are pushing the bar. Cheerleading is something that you can never reach the top and be content with where you're at. The bar's always being leveled up because people are trying to do the newest skills. They think that, okay, like a back handspring full up, that's the max. No, people are not doing back handspring double ups. And the bar's always being lifted. So that's what we're also trying to do with our routine. Once we get good, if we hit a 0 routine and we feel confident with it, we're moving on. We're trying something new.
Now, within the team itself, there are a number of positions, so to speak, that like you need to have in order to be competitive in the competitive cheer world. Mm-hmm. Just take us kind of through, like, you've got your bases, you've got your flyers. What else am I missing?
We got back spots, so they're typically the tallest people on the team. So I was definitely not one of those. We got mid layers. So when we're doing 2.5 high pyramids, we have somebody at the bottom. We call them our base layer. We have somebody standing on their shoulders, and then we have our tippy top. So they're at that 2.5 high level, which could not be me. I belong on the ground. But it takes a lot of courage for those girls to get all the way up to the very, very top. And then we have baskets. So we have a full throw group, and I lay in bed at night. Sometimes I'm like, okay, I'm really teaching people how to chuck people in the air, do a flip, and then catch them, which is also insane. So typically we have our tippy tops also flying those baskets, and then we have our strongest people who are typically tossing to the top of the pyramid, also throwing those baskets as well.
Well, just as we kind of, how did your time with, I'm sure you were the standard cheerleader, on the sideline during the games that everybody sees, but how did competitive cheer become part of your life?
So I started cheering, doing like the rec sideline when I was maybe in 2nd grade. Did that all the way through about 8th grade or so. And when I got into 8th grade, I had people on my middle school team who were doing All-Star, which is technically like the club version of cheerleading. And I wanted to push myself and challenge myself more, because school cheerleading, where you're just doing the sideline, yes, you can challenge yourself, but you don't have the equipment or the ability, or sometimes even the coaching staff, to push yourself to the next level. So I started at a cheerleading gym in 8th grade, and that's where I truly excelled. You have different equipment instead of a dead floor, which is no springs underneath. We're on a spring floor. You have access to tumble tracks. You have access to coaches who have competed at Worlds, and now they're coaching you to push yourself to the next level of skills as well. So that's where I was kind of introduced to it. And then once I was on a Worlds team, I started looking at colleges, and I was like, wow, like these people are now doing the 2.5 high skills. They're throwing fulls. They're doing everything that I grew up always wanting to do. And so that's something, All-Star definitely changed my trajectory of what I wanted to do, because I didn't know if I was going to cheer in college. In 8th grade, I didn't know what I was doing anyways. But when I joined the All-Star team, you're no longer the best on your team, because somebody else is going to be better than you. And that's the same thing of when you're competing against other teams. Somebody else is always going to be better than you. You're never the best, because, again, the bar is always being lifted.
So you've got to obviously recruit these different, groups of people to compete within the team. How do you go about doing that? Like, do you, are there, I know Kansas is one of the latest states to get involved and have competitive cheer and dance at the high school level, but how do you recruit, athletes to bring them to Benedictine to then be part of the competitive team? Yeah,
so it's a lot of reaching out to prior coaches that I knew. I worked for the NCAA, which is a big cheerleading company, and over that I worked with coaches all over the summer, and so it's just a matter of networking with them, reaching out to them, seeing athletes who are interested in moving on. But I also have a team that's built up of athletes who have never cheered before in their life. So my competition team this year, a lot of them are returners, but last year was their first time ever competing. They came from powerlifting, they came from dance, they came from rugby, they came from, if you name it, they're probably on my team from it. But that's been very rewarding to see people wanting to challenge themselves and try something new, and then seeing them become cheerleaders. Because again, they came in doing the basic level stunts, and now they're doing skills that I couldn't even imagine doing coming in as a freshman.
What, as we kind of wrap things up, what do you think has probably been the biggest, or what was the biggest surprise for you when you moved into the collegiate level? You were an All-American as an athlete here at Benedictine. Now you've moved into coaching, literally right after you got done competing as an athlete. But what's kind of been the biggest surprise for you as when you were an undergrad, or for you as when you've been a coach, in continuing to evolve what we do here on campus with competitive cheer?
Yeah, people are always wanting to continue to push the limit, and even the people who came in not having any cheer experience before, they are at competitions. I have an expectation that they go and sit and watch the rest of the teams, because not only are you supporting everybody else, but you're also getting inspired. And so people coming in, maybe not having a whole lot of experience, but seeing them have the big googly eyes watching teams like Missouri Valley, St. Ambrose, some of the best teams in the NAIA, but then seeing them and saying I think we can do that, and getting excited about trying something new. That's been super rewarding, because that's how I was as an athlete. I saw people trying skills, and I was like, well, I want to do that. And taking the steps of whether that be progressions or watching videos or coming in and doing extra time and reps. That's definitely just been a very rewarding part of it.
Well, Gabby, thank you for taking the time. We appreciate you. Good luck as you get into the last opportunity of the regular season, and hopefully you guys can hit that number that allows you to be able to continue. I think Nationals now are just down the road in Topeka.
Yes, yeah.
So it would be nice to kind of have that, and you'd be able to
Yeah,
get a good
that'd be
contingency
awesome.
of Raven Nation down and watch you guys at Nationals. So good luck at conference.
Thank you.
Coming up after the break, we'll visit with one of the national qualifiers for women's track and field. You're watching the latest edition of Greatness Unleashed here from the campus of Benedictine College.
It all began in 1937. A vision to start something different, something better. A college athletics association where competition wasn't just about the scoreboard, but about character, growth, and rising together. From that first tip-off, the NAIA has grown in size and in spirit, in the way we play, the way we lead, the way we make athletics greater than a game.
This is college athletics the way it was meant to be. This is the right way to play.
Welcome back to the latest edition of Greatness Unleashed. Josh Pound now joined by one of the student athletes for women's track, Leah Kuhn. And Leah, guys had a pretty successful indoor meet this season.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you know, championships are what you guys always strive for, but talking to Coach Connealy in his segment, the gap between what everybody anticipated CMU would have over the rest of the field, you guys were able to kind of shrink that down.
Yeah.
Just give us some of your general thoughts on how you thought the meet went for you and your teammates.
Yeah, no, I thought it went really well. I know our distance crew is really strong, so we have a lot of girls who can score points in the top 8, which is awesome. And I know I can't speak for like the whole team, but I know distance especially, like we work really hard, and I'm sure like other groups also work hard. But Coach Kofer, he knows what he's doing, and his workouts are written to help us be successful. So I think we really saw the fruits of that at conference, and I know like part of competing is that like you give your all for every single race, and it was really cool to see a lot of my teammates who had, you know, the 5K, the 3K, and the mile. They gave everything, and they PR'd in every event. So I think that was really cool to see.
Now you compete in a very unique event, the race walk, and you were an All-American a year ago in the indoor, and you know you hit your mark that you needed to requalify pretty early in the indoor season.
Yes.
Just take us back through that. Like, is it a relief to know that like I've hit my mark and now I can just kind of hone in on things, or what changes for you once you know that you've hit your standard that you need to hit in order to qualify for nationals?
Yeah, I would say back in December when I qualified, it was that meet. It was my first week back in a while actually, because I had a stress fracture all of cross country season, so that meet was kind of just like a rust buster. But then I realized kind of like throughout it that I was like close to the standard, so I was like, okay, I'm just gonna go as hard as I possibly can. And then I ended up hitting it, which was good. And then I had I could focus on running more during the actual indoor season. And then once conference was over, it was like, okay, now we're gonna focus on nationals. So.
Well, a pretty good contingency on the women's side heading down to nationals this year down in Florida. You have the benefit of having been there.
Yes.
A number of your teammates, this is going to be the first time they're making that trip. What are some of the things that you guys have been able to talk about maybe in this last week since the conference was done and the official qualifiers came out? What have you been kind of helping them to prepare for as you guys get ready to head down and be competitive down there this year?
Honestly, it's more so just like enjoying the fact that we get to go as a team and like, okay, we're gonna have fun together. And I think that's really important because yes, it is about competing and about like doing your best, but it's also a really fun trip full of good memories. And I think especially there are going to be a lot of seniors on this trip who I'm going to miss next year. So I'm going to try to like enjoy that time with them and encourage others to do the same. So.
Based off of your experiences last year and how your race went for you last year, what are some things that you'll kind of key off of this year, look to improve on the mark that you hit last year?
I think I'm just gonna try and stay with the top group. I know there are a lot of girls in the race walk who they have very good marks going in, and I'm looking to compete with them. So I'm just gonna stay behind a couple of them the whole race and just like give it my all.
So now that we've kind of, we touched on that a little bit, I talked to Coach a little bit about the uniqueness of track, and you've touched on it quite a bit, that like, we want to go down and we want to compete, but like there's that, friendship, that family aspect of it. You guys don't compete as a team, so to speak, except for once or twice a year and at conference. So just kind of talk about that and, what it means to kind of be in like the individual team sport aspect that you guys do have within the sport.
Yeah, I think it can be really hard. Like, I definitely notice at meets, like, a lot of people, they have their groups. It's like the distance squad and then the throws and then the jumps. And so it can be hard to, like, intermingle with everybody. But outside of, like, meets, I know we try to do a lot of team activities like Bible studies and things. And so that is meant to, like, encourage, like, the team culture. And I know the distance squad, like, we really do try and cheer for everybody. I mean, sometimes you can't, like, right. If you're, like, you're warming up and somebody's throwing, it's like, well, I want to cheer for you, but I also got to focus on my race. But yeah, so I think we do try to, like, when we can, definitely cheer for our teammates. I think that really shows, like, okay, yeah, we're one team.
So, you've been at Benedictine for a few years now. What was it about, is track and field what brought you to Benedictine, or was Benedictine something that you knew about, and then, oh, by the way, I can also continue to do track and field while I'm here?
Yeah, it was more so the latter. I didn't really know what I wanted to do in college, but I came to Benedictine for the Pres Scholar weekend, and then actually the lacrosse coach interviewed me for like the presidential scholars, and she was like, oh, like, you need to reach out to the coaches, because I didn't think I was good enough. Right. And I actually played soccer more so than I'm not really a runner, but now I am. So I just reached out, and the track coach, he was Coach Jekyll at the time, and he was like, yeah, we'd love to have you. And I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to run. So, yeah, and then, so I decided to come to Benedictine first, and then running was just like an added bonus, which kind of solidified me coming here. So
what was it about Benedictine that made this be the place that you wanted to spend 4 or 5 years of your life becoming the person that you're going to become?
Really, it was smaller. It's a smaller school, but still big enough that you don't know everybody, and it's very authentically Catholic, which I really appreciate. So
academically, what have you made that decision, and then what are you planning on doing?
Yeah, coming in, I was thinking like, oh, I don't know what I want to study, maybe architecture, maybe engineering, and so I took both those classes, and I ended up really liking architecture, so yeah, I'm majoring in architecture.
So how has that dynamic worked? Obviously, there's a lot of attention that has to be paid to those classes, but then you've also got to balance that with your time as a student athlete. Again, it's an individual sport, so it's not like you have to practice as a team. You can kind of rearrange your practice schedule depending on how classes are going, but how has that worked out for you?
It definitely helps when there are 3 senior girls who are also on the track team, and they do architecture as well. So I really have them. They're almost like my older sisters, that they have done it before me, and then I can look to them as role models. But yeah, it is very challenging. I have to be good with time management, and it's really hard, but I'm a student athlete, and so sometimes, like, I have to make sacrifices that I don't want to make, but yeah, school's got to come first.
So one of the things I always like to talk to our student athletes when they come in is you've been on campus, you're fully involved in the community of Benedictine. What has been your biggest maybe surprise or thing that you weren't expecting now that you've kind of established yourself on campus for when you first came on campus?
Yeah, I didn't think I was going to do race walk. Like, if you'd asked me like a couple of years ago, like, oh, you're going to be, national qualifier, I'd be like, no, like, that's stupid. Yeah, but yeah, I think that's been my biggest surprise. Like, it wasn't something I ever thought I was going to get into, and really, I only got into it because we needed to score points at conference, and coach was like, hey, can you do it? I was like, yeah, okay. And it turns out that I'm good at it, so I'm like, okay, I'll keep working it.
And it's kind of, I don't want to say niche, but
Yeah,
like it is very unique,
It is.
you know, in that, you know, there's a lot of stuff that goes in. You know, we saw last year in the men's race, you know, it took like 45 minutes or an hour for the final results to be official. You know, have you ever had to deal with something similar to that? Like, and what's that do to you, like mentally, to know that, like, hey, I finished here, but my position could change because they have to review and all that kind of stuff.
The guys race, like, they're definitely more aggressive when they race. Like, they always get more paddles. I would say the girls were a bit more conservative. But yeah, I think my form is pretty decent, so like I don't get very many paddles, so that isn't a major stressor. But I would say like during the race when you do get a paddle, it's very like mentally difficult because you're like, shoot, like my form is bad, like there's a girl behind me, she's gonna pass me. But I kind of use it to my advantage when somebody else gets a paddle because I know like it gets in your head mentally, so I'm like, okay, now I'm gonna pass this girl. So.
Are you keeping track of how many of those you get through the course of a race, or is it just like you get one and then you just kind of have to readjust, flush it, and move on?
Yeah, I'm honestly not super familiar with the rules, but I do know at nationals like they have like a scoreboard basically on the home stretch that you like see every time you go by, and it's got like everybody's name and number, and then how many like paddles they've gotten, and so like you can kind of keep track. You see like, oh, she's gotten like that many. Maybe I should like work up to her and like put some pressure on her. So.
Well, thank you for taking the time. We appreciate you taking time out of the schedule. And you guys are leaving bright and early in the morning to fly down to Florida and compete. So good luck on nationals, and hopefully we get a chance to bring you back sometime in the spring and talk about how the trip went and how the outdoor season's going.
Yeah, thank you very much for your time.
No problem. That's been this latest edition of Greatness Unleashed. You've been watching here from the campus of Benedictine College.